Lord, now you are letting your servant depart in peace according to your word, for my eyes have seen your salvation. Have you ever caught a glimpse of something, and in that moment, in that glimpse, things begin to click into place or suddenly make sense of something? Maybe you catch sight of something sticking out of your Christmas present and suddenly you know what the gift is. Or maybe like when you're on a long car ride, sat nav down, you're not exactly sure of your location, but one signpost or landmark reveals where you are, where you've come from and where you're going. This is what seems to be happening for Simeon when he sees the baby Jesus. Simeon doesn't usually make it into the nativity plays. He hasn't got shiny presents or cute sheep. He doesn't have dramatic angelic visitations like some of the others. Simeon is a quieter character. He's an old man who tradition suggests was one of the scribes helping to translate the Hebrew scriptures into the Greek document known as the Septuagint. No, poor Simeon isn't an exciting character to depict. Who wants to be the guy sitting in the temple with the quilt? But as a scholar and thinker, and perhaps a custodian of Jewish beliefs, Simeon was someone who certainly knew of the repeated prophecies in the Hebrew scriptures that God was going to send a savior for the whole world. He'd lived a long life, seen kings come and go, empires rise and fall. But up until that point, he knew he had not seen the one thing that he longed to see: God's salvation for humankind. I can imagine Simeon pondering over the years, what would God's salvation look like? How would the Almighty Creator of the universe solve the problems of the world? The oppression, greed, cruelty, suffering, fear, loneliness, hatred of others, hatred of ourselves. What might salvation for all of this look like? We don't know what Simeon thought, but we know that he believed the promise that God would do something to save humanity. He longed for it and he looked for it. He knew it wasn't found in the books he read, all his wise learning. He knew he hadn't found it in the religious temples or in his community, family and friends. Even in all the best, most beautiful things in this world, he hadn't seen it. Like Bono, Simeon still hadn't found what he was looking for. No, it was in the moment when he glimpsed that baby. In that moment, Simeon knew that he had seen God's salvation. That was it. Not a dramatic appearance in the sky, not some powerful warrior king or queen brandishing a sword, not some new mystical text or a new set of laws. No, God's answer for salvation was this child. Did Simeon think that the Jewish Messiah, this baby in front of him, was actually God in human form? Perhaps not, and Simeon would never go on to see all that Jesus would do in his life, the people he would heal, the profound teachings that would rock the world, his authority over evil, his valuing of the lowly and the outcast. Simeon would not see the death that Jesus would die, nor the speed with which people from all tribes and nations would come to worship him as the one who beat death itself. Simeon would not see any of that. All Simeon saw was this baby. But in that moment, in that glimpse, he had seen enough to know and believe. Perhaps each of us gets a little glimpse of God in our lifetime. Perhaps God reveals himself to each of us in different ways. And perhaps the question that we could ask ourselves is this: have I seen enough to believe? The line from the carol often quoted by the late Queen Elizabeth in her Christmas addresses almost seems like it could have come from Simeon's mouth as he looked at Jesus. The hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight. The result of Simeon's encounter with Jesus was utter peace, and he declares that this Christ child would be a light to all people everywhere. Could you also look at the Christ child this Christmas and believe? Could the same peace be yours this Christmas?